Welcome everyone to another grandMA3 tutorial, and this might address a rather rare use case, but since it took me a while to fix it, I thought let's share this with the community, so I probably save you some time. Basically what I wanted to do is getting reliable beat per minute speed information from some DJ hardware into a grandMA console, and I happen to own one of these Denon DJ Prime 4 Plus devices. It's a standalone DJ controller, and there are a lot of devices like this out there on the market. My first approach was pretty straightforward. The grandMA3 consoles support analog audio in through an XLR connection. So I hooked up one of the outputs of this controller to the console, and we are actually looking at it right now. So what you're looking at is not an on-PC installation, it's a web remote. So this is actually my Safari browser on my Mac, and it's a web remote connection to a grandMA Lite console, which sits right next to me. But I'm using web remote to record the screencast because it's probably a little bit easier on your eyes. And once you've hooked everything up, you actually see sound coming in here right now. I guess the song has just ended. Yeah, that's the next one. And you see these beautiful frequency bars here. So the console is receiving audio information. Good. So let's switch to the beat detection mode. And what you're seeing here, right now, the song that's coming in is playing at 120 BPM. Unfortunately, grandMA's BPM detection is all over the place. It's pretty stable right now at 131, which is wrong, and then it jumps down to 65, which is also wrong. Sometimes it goes up to the 200 mark, down to the 30 mark. It's basically pretty random. It never actually detects the real speed that's coming in, and let's keep it detecting here. Interestingly enough, in the documentation for the console, there is a section which deals with the BPM master, and that actually says that if I manually set this BPM master to a value, the console will approximate around the manually set value. So it's the idea here is that if I set this to whatever 125, the detection won't be all over the place, but rather snap to that value. The problem is this doesn't work either. If I move this to 120, which is actually correct, you see it just jumped down to 65 and now back to 131, which is completely nonsense. I discussed this on the grandMA forums and on various Discord servers with other grandMA users, and they basically told me it has been broken forever, never worked, it's completely broken, so don't use it. Yeah, sadly enough, I don't know whether nobody actually wants to use this feature or whether it's just too hard to implement, but forget about it. Don't use it, doesn't work. We need to find a workaround. Before we move forward, let me quickly switch the audio off, because otherwise it will constantly set like bogus BPM values. So I'm right back. Good, no more incoming audio. So I was looking for a workaround, and there is one which is super reliable, works beautifully, requires a little bit of configuration. So the hardware I'm using, the Denon DJ player, supports a protocol called Ableton Link. And Ableton Link basically is a network level protocol which allows all sorts of hardware to stream information out on the network to other devices for them to take that information and use it however they want. Ableton Link does not require you to run Ableton Live. Ableton Live is a huge software package for making music. It also supports Ableton Link, but you don't need to run Ableton Live to use the protocol. Basically, it's really more or less a protocol, a specification, which vendors of all kinds can adhere to to become citizens of an Ableton Link environment. And the Prime 4 does support Ableton Link. It streams out information about the current song tempo, the beats per minute. It also streams out information about fader positions and the status of its start, stop, pause buttons, etc. But in this setup, we are only interested in grabbing the beats per minute. On the other hand, grandMA supports a protocol called OSC, Open Sound Control. And via Open Sound Control, you can do a lot of things remotely in your console. Basically, you can more or less do everything you can do with the user interface with Open Sound Control messages. So the idea is that you send Open Sound Control OSC messages to the console to move faders, whatever you want. You can also send commands into the command line, and that's actually what we are going to use in this case. Let me probably go to the playback section here. Here we've got our speed master, our BPM master, and you probably, you're aware of that if you go to settings object. The BPM master is a master in the speed section, so it's in the 3 speed section, and it's master 16 down here. That's hardwired to be the BPM master. And I've just assigned this to an executor here. And you can programmatically set the BPM master in the command line if you type master 3.16 at BPM 50. Okay, and there we are. It's at 50 now. You can also do master, whatever, you get the idea. Master 3.16 at BPM 100. So the idea now is that instead of typing this in manually, whenever Ableton Link indicates a change in BPM from the DJ hardware, I want this command string with the correct BPM value to be sent to the console as an Open Sound Control message. This sounds difficult, but it's actually not. But what we need is one more piece of software, and that is Chataigne. And I don't know whether I spell this correctly. Chataigne is a French open source project, so it's free. They accept donations, and I donated. I hope you do too, because they do a tremendous job. Not only is the software beautifully designed, it has a great community over on Discord, super helpful people. I just love it. Chataigne is extremely powerful. Let me scroll down here. We are using it to bridge incoming Ableton Link BPM information to outgoing Open Sound Control information, but it can actually do much more. You see, it supports OSC, Ableton Link, obviously, DMX, ArtNet, streaming ACN, all sorts of stuff, and you can have it connect to Resolume and other software. So it's really, really powerful. Also, if you go to downloads, they have pre-built distributions for Windows, Intel and Apple Silicon Macs, Linux, and even for Raspberry Pis. So if you're building like a tour rack and you don't want another machine running Chataigne, you can just put this on a cheap Raspberry Pi and it'll run forever. It's not very resource hungry. It's just great. So I'm not going into how you install this. It's pretty straightforward. Download it, click the installer, start it. So back to the overall concept. The DJ hardware does Ableton Link, and on Denon specifically, you gotta activate Ableton Link in the settings. And then you need to make sure to press this little sync button here, because if you're not having sync active, the Denon DJ system would actually listen to Ableton Link traffic to adjust its speed. If you hit sync here, it sends out the BPM information. That's a small detail. If you're on the same configuration like me, you make sure sync is pressed. Good. Now let's fire up. Let's not go to Chataigne. Let's go to the grandMA side of things first. There are a couple of things you gotta make sure in the grandMA environment. First, go to Settings, Network, and make sure that your console is actually on the network and that it's enabled as a network participant. And there should be a couple of things. First, note its IP address. That's its logical network address on your Ethernet, and mine is at 192.168.1.160. Also make sure that networking is enabled, so you have a yes in this column here. If you have a no here, usually you also see a standalone in red here in the status indicator. So make sure this is yes, and this says idle master. If you're connecting to your console through a web remote, like I do it here, you can't actually change this value through web remote. You got to do it on the console. So check these things. Check that you have a valid IP address, and check that networking is enabled and that you have a status of idle master in network settings. That's all. The next thing is you want to enable inbound OSC connections. For that, we go to settings, in and out, and you usually have one connection set up already. So this entry should already be here. If not, you know the deal. Insert OSC data here. Click this one, and you get this line. A couple of things to make sure. Make sure that your console is using the correct Ethernet connection. grandMA consoles support more than a single physical network connection, so pick the correct network interface here. For mine, it already was set to the correct interface. Then make sure that you enable input. This one. This says right now the console should start listening for incoming Open Sound Control messages. There's also enable output, which actually allows the console to send OSC messages to third-party hardware, but we don't do this in this case. We just want to receive the tempo information. Destination IP address. On my console, it was already set to this value. On yours, it might say none, or it might just be empty. Don't worry about this one. We don't send messages out from the console, so we don't need a destination device at all. So whatever you've got in here is fine. Just ignore it. Mode has to be UDP. Basically, there is a specification which allows Open Sound Control over TCP connections, which tend to be a little bit more reliable, but Chataigne currently doesn't officially support OSC over TCP. So if this says TCP, switch it to UDP. The port information is important. I believe that by default, MA listens on port 8000. I set this to 9000 manually because I have got other OSC devices listening on 8000 on my network. So if yours says 8000, that's fine. Just leave it there. And then if we scroll to the right here, which is a little bit more complicated on the web remote, a couple of other things. Make sure that receive is set to yes, actually allowing the console to receive data. And also make sure that the console is allowed to receive commands, because as I demonstrated before, we will actually use the command line to set the BPM master to its speed. Also, while you're configuring all of this, switch echo input to yes. This setting takes care for outputting whatever message the console receives to the grandMA3 system monitor. Once everything is working, you can switch this back to no, because otherwise all of the constantly incoming OSC BPM messages will render system monitor useless, because you will just see thousands of messages. But while you're configuring all of this, this is very helpful for debugging. So that's all you got to do. Let's close this one and go to this view. Let's get rid of the sound window. I've already added a system monitor window. Let's draw this view. Good. and we will be able to see the incoming OSC messages here in a few minutes. So, to bridge between the Ableton Link world and OSC / grandMA, just open Chataigne. And Chataigne has this, once you open it, you will have a view like this. I believe these tabs might be in a different order, but that's basically what you're going to see. So now what we're going to do is we add the connections, and all connections in Chataigne are implemented as modules, and there's a vast variety of different modules. It's really beautiful. We only need 2. So first let's add our protocol Ableton Link connection here. So we've added this one, and you'll see that right away Chataigne does see Ableton Link traffic. It does see speed information, the BPM here. It also has beat count and other information, but we are only interested in the BPM. And you don't have to configure anything. As soon as you add the module, it should detect the Ableton Link traffic. If you don't see anything happening here, chances are you have something misconfigured on your network or on the sending device. So right now, the Ableton Link connection is working, and what we need, what's missing, is the outgoing Open Sound Control plugin, so to speak, module, to link to the grandMA console. So we hit plus protocol, and the first one here is Open Sound Control. Added this module. This needs a little bit of configuration because Chataigne needs to know where to send its messages to. So over here in the inspector, we uncheck local. We put in the network IP address of the console, which happens to be this one. And we put in the remote port of 9000. In my case, in your setup, it might be 8000, which is MA's default. It's the information in settings, in and out. Here it's the IP address of the console. Here is the OSC port on which the console listens. Let's click this way. Good. So now we have both connections. And the last thing we got to do is tell Chataigne how to translate the Ableton Link information to an OSC message that the console understands. And the way we do this in Chataigne is by using state machines. Chataigne can have hundreds of state machines doing a lot of things, but we only need a single state machine doing a single mapping. So let's configure it. We select plus, add state, and in here we select plus, and we add a mapping. So this is a mapping. And what do we want to map? As an input value, we want to select Ableton Link's BPM information. And as an output, we want to create a custom OSC message sent to the console. So Open Sound Control has this concept of target addresses. And addresses are physical or logical things on the target device. For example, in a grandMA environment, one address could be a fader, an executor, and one address could be the command line. And in the MA documentation, there is a section about OSC, and it has some examples, and it also has an example of how to target the command line. And you see here that the OSC message, the OSC address is just /cmd. The console expects a single string text argument, and the argument should be the actual command that the console is supposed to execute. So let's build this. We are not targeting example, we are targeting /command. Send the OSC message to the command line. We are going to add a single string argument. And we first have to unlink this so we can just enter whatever we want. And instead of example, we are sending master 3.16, which is the BPM master, at BPM. And now we do need the BPM value, which is coming in through Ableton Link. How do we do this? Well, this took me a while. You can add other arguments here from other modules, but again, the console expects a single string argument. So somehow this manually typed string needs to add the value from Ableton Link. And it turns out there actually is an undocumented way of doing this in Chataigne. And here we go. You type open curly braces, input, colon, and then the index of the argument, which you want to replace this with. And we only have one, so we tell Chataigne takes the first argument, which is Ableton Link BPM. Here we go. And that's all we've got to do. I switch over to the console and we go to the debugger, which has the system monitor. And now I walk to my Denon hardware and move the speed fader on my Denon console, on my Denon DJ environment. And what you saw is that whenever I moved the fader on the Denon DJ environment, this one here, this is a speed fader, it immediately adjusted the BPM coming into the console. And it's pretty funny because on the real console there's a motorized fader, and so whenever I move the fader slightly on the Denon DJ console, it adjusts the actual fader on the grandMA console. So this is beautiful. It's super reliable, 100% accurate, and yeah, that's it. I hope that this was helpful. Excuse my English. I'm actually based in Germany, so struggle with the language from time to time. I would love if you comment, like, and subscribe, and all those things, and probably follow me on Instagram. I go to r2.lighting to learn who I am, and yeah, I hope to hear from the community. Thank you.